PR Connections Radio presents
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. And man, this is going to be a fantastic episode. Currently, we are here as the Stanley Cup Finals. We're going to be discussing that on today's show. And it is going to be a really good series to talk about. You have the Vegas Golden Knights and the Florida Panthers taking on each other in the Stanley Cup Final 2023. Now, I wanted to very quickly on this episode talk about the two teams and what the similarities are with this. And more importantly, I wanted to talk about what are some differences as well. Now, the first thing I want to point out when it comes to the Stanley Cup Final is this is going to be a first. And I'm going to point this out in an obvious way, but stay with me. The reason why the Stanley Cup Final is going to be a first is because you're going to have a first-time winner in the Stanley Cup Final. The Florida Panthers, this is their second appearance in the Stanley Cup Final. Their first one was in 1996. They lost to the Colorado Avalanche, and this was one of their first years existing. So you had a team that was a close, newly fresh expansion team, and they lost to the Colorado Avalanche, who were the team of the 90s back in the day. So you had the Florida Panthers, second time in the Stanley Cup Final. And on the opposite end, you have our Vegas Golden Knights, and this is their second appearance in the Stanley Cup Final. The Vegas Golden Knights, they lost in 2018 to the Washington Capitals, led by Alex Ovechkin. So you are going to have a first-time winner here. Both of these teams are 0-1 heading into their second appearance. I also want to point out that for Paul Maurice for the Florida Panthers and Bruce Cassidy for the Vegas Golden Knights, you have an opportunity to hoist the Stanley Cup. And this is going to be very important for both coaches as it is their first season with their respective team. Paul Maurice, longtime Winnipeg Jets head coach, he was let go. He joined Florida this past offseason. Bruce Cassidy, kind of the same way. He was a former Boston Bruins coach. They let him go. Now he's with the Vegas Golden Knights. So as we are discussing the Stanley Cup Finals here on Vegas Hockey Hub, I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. Follow us on social media at Vegas Hockey Hub and follow your host at Ian Rachiele18. Now, I want to first off focus on Florida as they're the visiting team. Then I will address the Vegas Golden Knights. So the Florida Panthers, they're going to be a team that is going to be very focused on momentum. I mean, this is a team that was the 8th seed, barely made it into the Stanley Cup playoffs, went up against arguably the best regular season team of all time in the Boston Bruins and beat them in 7 games. Then they took on the Toronto Maple Leafs, a team that just won their first postseason appearance in over 20 years, getting to the second round. And the Florida Panthers took on Toronto and beat them in very dominating fashion, may I add. And then in the Eastern Conference Finals, they take on the Carolina Panthers and swept Carolina, getting to the Stanley Cup Final. So Florida has been really a feel-good story in the NHL. I kind of think it's very similar to the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals. A feel-good story, an underdog, a team that's the 8th seed, gone all the way. Now, as much as I want to talk about the players when it comes to the NHL, and when it comes to the Florida Panthers, I have to give credit to the general manager, Bill Zito, because he has been with the Florida Panthers since 2020, and he's really helped this team get built into what it is now. Now, Bill Zito, he was the assistant general manager with Columbus, and he was with them for a couple of years. Now he is in Florida. He's done incredibly well. I mean, some notable signings that he did in Florida, I would say definitely the Alexander Barkov signing. Alexander Barkov, it was an 8-year deal, $80 million. So Alexander Barkov was one heck of a deal for him. He also had the Sam Reinhart situation. He called the Buffalo Sabres, acquired Sam Reinhart from Buffalo in 2021. That was a good deal. And you also got to give credit to Sergei Bobrovsky because of what he has done in Florida as well. So he's done some very good moves when it comes to Florida. Now, a few players that you need to watch out for, and a few players that I would keep an eye on from Florida. I definitely have to go with Matthew Tkachuk. Now, Matthew Tkachuk was a huge deal with the Florida Panthers. When they did the trade with the Calgary Flames, they got back Matthew Tkachuk in the deal. When they sent Jonathan Huberdeau to Calgary, they got back Matthew Tkachuk. And what an amazing deal this has been. Matthew Tkachuk, a former top pick with the Calgary Flames, comes over to Florida and had 109 points in the regular season, 40 of them being goals. And in this postseason, Matthew Tkachuk has been the MVP for Florida. 17 games, 9 goals, 21 points, and he has racked up over 40 penalty minutes so far for Florida. So Matthew Tkachuk has definitely been an MVP for them and has definitely been a very good player for Florida. Somebody else I would have to mention is Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett, once again, came from the Calgary Flames. Wow, Calgary Flames has definitely been a team of notice when it comes to Florida and Calgary. Sam Bennett got dealt to Florida in the 2021 NHL trade deadline. This is his third season in Florida, and he has racked up well over 40 goals in that time span, and he has averaged nearly a point per game for Florida in the Stanley Cup Finals. So 16 games and 11 points. He has done exceptionally well in Florida, so he's done a pretty good job. So as we are talking about the Stanley Cup Finals here on the PR Connections Radio on Vegas Hockey Hub, I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. Now, I just wanted to talk about the Florida Panthers real quick before we shift over to the Vegas Golden Knights. And somebody else that I really have to pay attention to is Anthony Duclair. Now, Anthony Duclair, he has been a longtime veteran in the NHL. He is a 27 years old. He's been in the NHL for a good amount of time. And this is his third season playing for Florida. But what an impact player he has been. He has had 10 points already in this postseason, for them being goals. You know, he's a quick shot, kind of a sniper of sorts, and he has done very well for Florida. And him being a free agent this upcoming offseason, he's going to get paid. Now, on Florida's end, there is a former Golden Knight that we have to point out. Nick Cousins, he played for the Vegas Golden Knights during the 2020 bubble. They acquired him from the Montreal Canadiens. He is playing for Florida now. Now, he only had 27 points in the regular season, but what he has done in the postseason, having 2 goals and 6 points in this postseason for a bottom 6 forward, but what he's mainly known for is his physicality, the way that he uses his body to kind of push people around. That's what Nick Cousins is all about. So pay attention to him, not just because he's a former Golden Knight, but because of his physicality and because of what he can do on the ice. Somebody else I'm going to mention that Bill Zito brought over was Ryan Lundberg. Now, Ryan Lundberg came from the Calgary Flames as well. There's been a reoccurring theme with Florida. Third season playing in Florida, and he has had a very, very good impact for this team. He's racked up over 20 penalty minutes in this postseason. He's a solid bottom 6 forward, and he is somebody that can definitely make an impact for the Florida Panthers. And one last player, this is a veteran, a guy who was a former top overall pick, and that was Eric Staal. Now, Eric Staal, he has been a 20-plus year veteran in the NHL. He won a Stanley Cup with Carolina, wants to win his second Stanley Cup, and he could do it here in Florida. 2 goals in this postseason. He is someone that has over 100 games in the postseason. He's someone you got to pay attention to. So on the forwards, I kind of mentioned that with the Florida Panthers. But on defense, not only do you have Mark Staal, because you have both of the Staals, but you have Radko Gudas, who is a veteran in the NHL. He has been here for over a decade. He is a solid player at this point. You also have Josh Mura, who they acquired on waivers. He is a good player on defense that they can use. And they also have Gustav Forsling. Now, Gustav Forsling, they brought him over from the Chicago Blackhawks, and he has been a very good member of the Florida Panthers. He had 41 points this season, averaging a half a point per game, and he is doing similar in the postseason. 6 points already and a +9, very valuable. They also have Brandon Montour, who they brought over from the Buffalo Sabres. They acquired him in the 2021 trade deadline. He had a whopping 73 points in 80 games and an insane 107 penalty minutes this regular season. He has also had a half a point per game, 9 points in 17 playoff games, and he's had 25 penalty minutes. But the main defenseman for the Florida Panthers that you have to pay attention to is Aaron Ekblad. Aaron Ekblad right now is the captain of the Florida Panthers. He is a very good player for them. And, you have Matthew Tkachuk, you have Alexander Barkov, you have Aaron Ekblad. But what I respect about him is not only has he been there forever, but his stats have been around the same in his career. This is a guy who has a +8, 6 points in 16 playoff games, and he had 14 goals this year for the Florida Panthers. Not bad for a former #1 overall pick that spent his whole career in Florida. I also have to mention the NHL in terms of goaltending. Sergei Bobrovsky has been a red-hot goalie for them. He has been one of the best goalies in the NHL. He had that infamous career in Columbus. They brought him in the Philadelphia Flyers deal, was a steal in Columbus, and he has now been in Florida. He has done exceptionally well for them, and I am very happy to say that Sergei Bobrovsky has returned to Sergei Bobrovsky that we once knew. So with Florida, that's kind of the situation there. I also want to give credit, and I'm also going to give a lot of credit to one certain player on Florida, because this is a guy that this postseason, he has been one of their best players. In fact, you can make an argument that he has been the best player for them in this postseason, and that was Alex Lyon. Alex Lyon started the first 3 games for the Florida Panthers, kept them in this series, and if he hadn't been there, Florida against Boston, that might have been a huge question mark. So Sergei Bobrovsky, he is going to get a lot of attention. He's going to get the main he's going to get the main applaud in this situation. But Alex Lyon, he definitely should get some credit. Now, for the Vegas Golden Knights side, it's a completely different story. The Vegas Golden Knights, how they got to the Stanley Cup final is insane. They took on the Winnipeg Jets. They beat them in 5 games. They go on, they take on the Edmonton Oilers, and they beat them in 6 games. Now they go and take on the Dallas Stars and beat them in 6 to get to the Stanley Cup final. Now, for the Vegas Golden Knights, obviously the MVP of this series so far has been Jack Eichel. Jack Eichel, 6 goals, 14 assists, and 20 points with a +11 in 18 games. I mean, Jack Eichel has obviously been their MVP. I also want to give a lot of credit to his line mate in Ivan Barbashev. He has had 16 points in 18 games. As a matter of fact, there are a few players right now who are averaging a point per game for the Vegas Golden Knights. You have Jonathan Marchessault, 10 goals, 18 points in 18 games. You also have Mark Stone, 16 points in 18 games, and Chandler Stevenson, 15 points in 18 games. So as we are doing this Stanley Cup Finals discussion, Golden Knights versus Panthers, here on Vegas Hockey Hub on PR Connections Radio, a couple of stats I want to read out is Riley Smith, 12 points in 18 games, and William Karlsson, 10 goals in 18 games. So Jonathan Marchessault and William Karlsson are leading in goals. Jack Eichel is a leader in assists and in points. In terms of time on ice, the leader in that category is Alex Pietrangelo with around 24 minutes per game. And I also want to say in terms of plus minus, that is Jonathan Marchessault with a plus 14. Aiden Hill in the postseason, 12 games played, a 2.07 goals against average, and a 93.8 save percentage with 8 wins and 3 losses in the postseason. He has been a very good acquisition for them. I also want to give a lot of credit to Bruce Cassidy for what he has done for the Vegas Golden Knights. He has done a really good job for them. Kelly McCrimmon as their general manager. He got a lot of flack when he got here, but he has done exceptionally well from what George McPhee did, and he has kind of done a lot of backing off of that, and has done an exceptional job. So as we are talking about the Stanley Cup Final here on Vegas Hockey Hub, I'm your host Ian Rachiele. I want to spend the last 15 minutes kind of just talking about the matchups itself, because you're going to have the lines going up against each other, and I think it's very valuable heading into this postseason. So you're going to have Florida's first line versus Vegas's first line. And I look at Florida's and I look at Vegas's and I say, let's compare the two. So Florida on the first line, they're going to have a situation where their first line going up against Vegas, you have Alexander Barkov, you have Anthony Duclair, and you have Carter Varhey. Carter Varhey, Alexander Barkov, and Anthony Duclair have done exceptionally well in this postseason, but I don't want to count out Vegas's first line because Barbashev, Eichel, and Marchessault have done incredibly well. Now, based off of playoff performance, I'm going to give the edge to the Vegas Golden Knights. The first line, because of Jack Eichel and because of Jonathan Marchessault, they have done a lot better performance-wise than what Florida's first line has been. So I will say that for the first line, I will give an edge to Vegas. I will say that Marchessault, Eichel, and Barbashev have done better than Duclair, Barkov, and Varhey. The second line with Cousins, Bennett, and Tkachuk going up against Vegas' second line of Howden, Stevenson, and Stone. Now this one, I have to give a slight edge to the Florida Panthers for this one. Cousins, Bennett, and Tkachuk, they have actually done a lot better in terms of production than the second line has been. Matthew Tkachuk, he has had key moment after key moment. Sam Bennett has been a solid guy in terms of offense and defense. And Nick Cousins, his physicality has gone a long way. So the first line, I will give an advantage to Vegas. Second line will go to Florida. The third line, when it comes to Vegas and Florida, I'm going to give the edge to Vegas because you have Riley Smith, you have William Karlsson, and Michael Amadio has done exceptionally well for them on that third line. Now, Sam Reinhart has been the standout on that third line for Florida, but Antoine Lundell and Ryan Lundberg, they haven't really been putting up the same stats as Smith, Karlsson, and Amadio. And then on the fourth line, I'm going to give the edge to Vegas here. Now, Eric Stahl has done really well, but Colin White and Zach DeLupe, they have not done as well as I think Nick Waugh, as Keegan Kolazar, and William Carrier have done. Now, the defensive side of it, this is where it gets interesting. Because if you want to look at the defensive pairings side by side, you can make some arguments here. Alec Martinez and Alex Pietrangelo, they have a plus 11 and a plus 7, respectively. Alex Pietrangelo, 8 assists, 9 points. Alec Martinez, no goals, but 5 points in this postseason. Gustav Forsling, 2 goals, 6 points, and a plus 9. Aaron Ekblad, a 5 assists, and a plus 8 in Florida. Now, I'm going to give a slight edge to Pietrangelo and Martinez just because their plus minus and their points per game is a little bit better. However, I got to give a lot of respect to Gustav Forsling and some respect to Forsling and those guys for doing what they're doing. Now, the second line for Vegas, you have Shea Theodore and Braden McNabb. Now, those guys have 3 points and a plus 4. 9 points and a +5 respectively for McNabb and Theodore. And on Florida's side, you have Mark Stahl, who has had 0 points in this postseason and a -2, but he has put up 21 time on ice. Brandon Montour, he has had 6 goals, 9 points, and a +4 for the Florida Panthers. So looking at that side by side, I'm going to say that you really compare those two, and I really have to go with the Vegas Golden Knights here. Just because McNabb and Theodore, their statistics have been a little bit better than what Montour and what Stahl have put up. And then the third line, you have Mahora and you have Stahl going up against Haig and Whitecloud. Now, Haig and Whitecloud, they have 3 points and 6 points respectively, but a +10 and a +12 for the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, Muhera and Gudas, they have a +1 and a +0, but 2 points and 3 points. So once again, I'm actually going to give the assist to Haig and Whitecloud on here. Now, goaltending, you have Adin Hill versus Sergei Bobrovsky. And I'm really going to be basing this off of statistics here. Sergei Bobrovsky, 11 wins, 3 losses, a 93.1 save percentage, and a goals against average of 2.3. Adin Hill has a goals against average of 2.7, a save percentage of 93.8, and 8 wins to 3 losses. So these stats are kind of similar, but because of how his goals against average is less than Sergei Bobrovsky's, I'm going to give the edge to Adin Hill here because of how incredible he has been in this postseason. So I'm going to give my kind of same prediction as I did earlier on. And I'm going to say that for this Stanley Cup final, the Vegas Golden Knights are going to defeat the Florida Panthers in 7 games. So this is going to be a really good series. It's going to be a back and forth series. But overall, I have the Vegas Golden Knights defeating the Florida Panthers in 7 games. This is going to be, once again, an incredible series. But I'm going to stick to my prediction here, and I'm going to have Vegas defeat Florida in 7 games. This is going to be a great back and forth series. Now, I want to also very quickly mention how Vegas Game 1, Game 2 being at T-Mobile Arena. Game 1, fantastic. Game 2 is going to be incredible. But then you're going to have Florida. They're going to be in Sunrise for Game 3 and Game 4 before they head back to Vegas for Game 5. Going to be in Florida for Game 6. And Vegas will be at T-Mobile Arena in Game 7. Now, hopefully, the Vegas Golden Knights can bring this home. Hopefully, the T-Mobile Arena, there will be a celebration. There will be a parade. Banners will be going up everywhere. And I'm hoping for everybody's sake that Vegas will be able to have a parade on the Strip. I will definitely be there. I know you will definitely be there. So it's going to be a fantastic situation. And I'm going to be very happy to say that when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, that there is going to be a very good back and forth situation, and I'm looking forward to it here on Vegas Hockey Hub. So this was a very quick video. Just wanted to talk about the Stanley Cup Finals, just kind of discuss it a little bit. And until next time, I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. This is Vegas Hockey Hub, and go Knights go. Support your local hockey, support junior hockey, and have a good one. I just want to very quickly talk about one more thing, and that is going to be when it comes to this series. I'm also going to be very excited to see the defensive matchups and the goaltending, but I also want to see some physicality as well. So I will not be surprised if the physicality in this series does get heated up a little bit, especially with Matthew Tkachuk being the guy he is, Nick Cousins. Those are two guys that definitely can get under people's skin. And with Vegas, we have Keegan Kolazar, William Carrier, Nick Waugh. So it's going to be very good to see a little bit of physicality in this series, but I'm definitely looking forward to that as well.